from parents in everything, more or less, because when you have a perspective of a parent carer, and for that matter a young person as well, you know, you're going to have all the information you need to make some very good decisions. And so with that in mind, the Parents Forum is sitting on quite a few of important decision-making groups in order to get your voice and your experiences to them. And that's always what we want to continue doing. We're all parent carers ourselves, so I have, although mine have grown up now, but have gone through the process of statements as it was then. The Parents Forum also is, we sit in Bradford, but across Yorkshire and Humber, there are another 14 parent forums. So they're doing what we're doing here, with over 20,000 membership in the Yorkshire and Humber parent carers. And we regularly meet in order to say, well, we're having a problem here, are you having a similar problem? And share that. So we are networked to 151 forums across the country. We are a registered charity and we abide by that. And as I've just mentioned, we want you to have as much time to either ask a question or listen to the updates, because I think in most of the updates, some of the questions that you might have will be answered in that update. So as we go, we're going to hear from a few people now giving updates about what's happened over the last year and what's going now. Then we'll have I'll read out the questions that have been sent in and we'll answer those. And at that point, we'll have a little break because we'll all need one, and come back and open it up to parents and carers to ask questions. What we need from them, so before that, please don't put questions in the chat box until we open it up, because we may lose you. And as far as answering questions, we'll get through as many as we possibly can. But if you've asked a question, we will get back to you and you will be sent a response, and we'll be putting that on the local offer. And also, as I was saying, that you might get your answers from the updates. To be honest, there are quite a few of these questions that could have been answered because they're in the local offer. So I'm trying to encourage people to engage with that, because that's being updated all the time and really important information. So if you want to contact us, that's our website, please do. Can you put it on to the next one? We're gonna now move over to meet the SEND transformation and compliance team. Okay, it's over to you. Is it Luke that's doing that one?
It's Josh, Julie.
Josh, right. Okay, Josh.
Shared on the screen is made up of 7 individuals. So Jane Hall, who's the team manager, she's been in Bradford the longest, taking a lead on the joint commissioning work stream. So the purpose of this team is to deliver the SEND reforms through a number of work streams, as mentioned, joint commissioning. So we've got 4 work streams. The other 3 are integrated assessment and compliance, which Joel Herbert is taking a lead on, preparing for adulthood, which myself is taking a lead on, and co-production and engagement, which Luke Metcalfe is taking a lead on there. In addition to those coordinators and Jane as team manager, we've also got Sally Skipper, who's project support, who ensures the team's running smoothly, all minutes are taken, actions carried forward, very much ensuring all cogs are turning. Sarah Parson, who's the local officer, so she's very much taking a lead on ensuring the local offer is as good as it can be, with all information to help yourselves as families, and make sure all services are signposted to. And then the newest member of the team, Nigel Hammond, who's a local offer support, and he's brought a wealth of IT knowledge into our team, and again making sure that the local offer is accessible and as good as it can be. So there's a purpose of our team there. So again, that one of the main areas is to ensure that the local area is working collaboratively. We're kind of that forum or that main medium to ensure that everyone's speaking to one another, and that we're all on the same page. On twice days is prepare for local office and inspection. I suppose that's how important it is that's on twice there. A couple of key achievements since the fruition of the team is that we've massively improved, and again this is part down to the some of the hard work that's going on, our compliance rates. So at the end of 2020 we ended at 52.5%, which was nearly a double on the previous year, and in fact last year we doubled the amount of plans that we finalised, so some great data there. And then currently year to date we're at 92.9%. Other key achievements from the team include such things as the data dashboard, the collaboration with SEND ambassadors and parent ambassadors, embedding co-production values, improving the local offer and the content on there, making sure it's all accessible, the development of an outcomes framework, which we're now trying to embed within services and systems to ensure that we've got that fine-tuned map and focus for our children and young people. Short break listening events, memorandum of understandings, developing and updating strategies. Again, just working with everyone as best we can to ensure that Bradford is on the right path, and that we're delivering those SEND reforms to ensure that children and young people with SEND have the best possible opportunities growing up in Bradford.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Can you move on, Louise, please? Is that you, Jane?
You, it's me, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jane Hall, and as Josh has just said, I'm the SEND Transformation and Compliance Manager for Bradford Council. And I think, as Josh has just said, one of the important things that for us is that partnership working across the local area. And when we say the local area, we mean everybody within education services, within health services, so that's the clinical commissioning group, CCG, and also public health as well, and also children and young people's social care. So we work right across all those areas, trying to work collaboratively together to strengthen that partnership working, which is really, really important in trying to move us forward in Bradford in terms of our SEND reforms. So the local authority, the clinical commissioning group and the parents forum have been meeting on a regular basis throughout the COVID lockdown period. So right from the first lockdown period in March to where we are now. So we have a regular fortnightly meeting, and that includes myself, Julie Bruce from the Parents Forum, and colleagues from the clinical commissioning group in health, which are also some members here today as well. So we meet on a regular basis and we look at where we're at in terms of our key priorities around the SEND reforms in Bradford. And when I talk about the SEND reforms, what we're talking about is trying to move us forward in line with the SEND Code of Practice and the Children and Families Act as well. to make sure that we are compliant in Bradford with what we should be delivering in terms of services and outcomes for children and young people with SEND. So that's really our role. We've got a multi-agency SEND strategic partnership board, which provides some governance to the work that we're doing, and we are accountable to that board as well, and that involves schools, it involves health, education, social care, voluntary community sector representatives, and also parent and care representatives. And in fact, Julie Bruce is the vice chair of that board as well. So there is an accountability structure here in terms of our progress and what we're having to develop and deliver to. In addition, we've got 4 SEND work streams, and they meet on a monthly basis. Again, they're multidisciplinary, so they've got representation from all the key agencies, and also, most importantly, we've got parent care representatives on those work streams. So again, working together, co-producing things that we do, such as the SEND strategy, such as the joint commissioning strategy that we've been working on together, and documents that we produce around co-production and engagement, and that's working really well. We've actually developed a joint engagement plan, so across all those different agencies, so that we can actually share the engagement that we're doing and the co-production that we're doing with parents and carers and children and young people, and so we can try and work better together and not duplicate, but also make sure we've not got any gaps either. And that engagement planning, it involves Parents Forum, SENDIASS services, the clinical commissioning group, the local authority, and all the other key partners that we need to be working with there. And I think one really good thing that's come out of some of that work and the engagement and co-production work stream is a memorandum of understanding, as Josh mentioned, that Julie Bruce, on behalf of Parents Forum and SENDIASS, with Debbie Jowett, who's here today as well, have pulled together an agreement about how they're going to work together, delivering support, advice and guidance for parents and carers of children and young people with SEND, but also looking beyond the 2 commission services and looking at how all the other parent and carer groups that there are in Bradford can try and strengthen that approach and work more closely together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I think you might have heard this term, co-production, because it's all over when you read things about, well, in health and social care and education. And I think there's one thing it's about really is that what we're about, which is getting all the right people together from the very beginning before you start planning services, because it will then lead to a better quality, a better run service. So I think who am I passing this on to?
I'm going to talk through these, Julie. Sorry, it's Luke.
Thank you, Luke. Go ahead.
No problem. So a few of these have already been mentioned by Josh and Jane in the last couple of slides, because some of them are achievements that have been led on by our team. Some of them have been led on as a partnership focus. The majority as a partnership focus. Most of these have come through the work stream that we've also mentioned, the co-production and engagement work stream as well. I started my role back in April last year, so the entire length that I've worked for Bradford has been during some kind of pandemic lockdown situation. But I just thought it was good to say that even though we've been in this pandemic situation, it's great to see a drive from all different partner agencies to move things forward, despite the situation that we're in. Everyone's working differently, and everyone's stepped up to the mark, really. We've been doing virtual meetings and been pulling things forward like that and communicating via email, via phone calls and video chats and that as well. So I thought I'd pull together a few sort of key achievements that relate to co-production in Bradford that the local area have achieved over the last sort of year. So I'll just talk through these now. So there was a big piece of work that we involved a lot of families from Bradford on about the SEND outcomes for children and young people with SEND in Bradford. So these were co-produced with families. We went out with a number of outcome statements, and we talked through these with families and asked which ones they felt was most pertinent and most important for those parents, for the children and young people, for them to achieve in the support that they get from Bradford and in their education, throughout their lives. So we agreed the outcomes, and then we went back out to families again and sort of talked through them and decided to put them into different words based on what the feedback that we got was. So that's now being embedded, and we're doing a piece of work with the CDC, the Council for Disabled Children, to help us embed that into our policies and practice, into our planning mechanisms, into EHC plans and annual reviews. And we're also looking at incorporating them into support plans for things like short breaks, to make sure that children are achieving outcomes through the support packages that they get through short breaks as well. Jane touched on the joint commissioning strategy. There's been a lot of work put into this on how we can change how we commission services and how we can buy in support for families in Bradford. So the joint commissioning strategy is now been written, and it's due to be published in the next month or so. This should improve the way that we buy services in Bradford as a local area, working together to make sure we get the best value for money and get the best services for families in Bradford. We'll be taking children, young people and parents and carers' views into account through the commissioning process. So when we're looking at going out to tender and selecting a service that might be the best service out there for families, we will be listening to children, young people and parents and carers about what's important to them to make sure that we get the right service first time. And then once the service is in place, it's about that contract management to make sure that they're doing the right job and everything's being done as best as it can be. So our social care service is doing a full review of our short break service. We went out to a survey last year to families in Bradford to try and get a bit of an indication on how they felt the current short break service was. We took quite a lot of feedback through that survey. We collated that into a report, and then we went out and did some listening events to talk through the outcome of the report, any key sort of concerns that have been raised. We engaged with over 150 families to talk about the service and what could be better, what's working well. And as a result of that, social care are doing a full review of the service, looking at the eligibility criteria, looking at the options that are in place and how people can access short breaks. So further information about that will be coming out, and we're looking at doing some more engagement on that once we've got a proposed new short breaks offer as well. So look out for that on the local offer and in our newsletters and through the Parents Forum on Shore, that we're sharing information on that as well. We've talked through this a little bit in the last couple of slides. So the co-production and engagement work streams have continued virtually throughout COVID, as have the other work streams. So we've really tried to continue work as normal, obviously, but virtually rather than face to face. And I think there's been a lot of achievements made through that work stream. The co-production values, we already had some values in place that were agreed back in 2019, but we decided to take a further look at those and just do a review and make sure they were still fit for purpose, that they were easy for people to understand. So we've gone through those, and we've now agreed those values as communication, partnership, transparency, respect and accountability. And we're working hard to embed these into policy and practice. These feature quite heavily in the joint commissioning strategy that I just talked about. Co-production values are being incorporated in how we commission services. So we wanted to involve as many parents and carers and children, young people as we can when we're looking at buying in a service, and using those values to sort of contribute to how we commission that service. And SEND listening events are now back up and running. So this is the first one that we've done in this format as a virtual listening event with the Parents Forum. We really hope that people get a lot from it and that they learn from it and they get an opportunity to have their say and give us as much feedback as they can so that we can change services to reflect the views of children, young people and parents and carers. We will be holding these on a regular basis. We're looking at quarterly to begin with. If there's a big demand for them, it might be that we increase that to say 2 a quarter, but at the moment it will be quarterly, and we're looking at doing another one in April. And I think we're going to share the date at the end of this meeting as well, if people are interested in joining another listening event. So yeah, that's it from me. So that's okay. And just to say as well, if anyone wants to look up any of these sort of bullet points on here, if there's any subjects that you want further information on, you can find pretty much every one of them will be on the local offer if you do want to look at anything in any more detail. We do try and put everything on the local offer so that people can look into it and get as much information as they can on it.
Hi, thank you for that. I think we're now, it's over to you, Julia.
It is indeed. Thanks very much, Julie. Hello, my name is Julia Elliott and I'm the Designated Clinical Officer for Special Educational Needs and Disabilities. So that's abbreviated down to the DCO for SEND, which you might hear sort of being mentioned as a short name. So I'm also the lead for Children and People's Transforming Care, which is the Transforming Care programme is all around sort of supporting children with autistic spectrum disorders or learning disabilities. And that's a relatively new extension to my role. That's only recently been in the last sort of 3 or 4 months. So that role is really sort of in development and evolving. But that's certainly an extension to my sort of current role as the Designated Clinical Officer. So it's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me to attend today. And I just want to sort of present a little bit about health and how health links into SEND and what our roles and responsibilities are in relation to SEND. So just a little bit of background about myself and what my role is. I'm employed by Bradford District Craven CCG, but I support and work with all the health services across Bradford and Craven District. So it's wider than the sort of Bradford District area. It does touch on sort of North Yorkshire and Craven as well. And like I say, it's very much about working with all the health services to really understand and support
Julia? You're frozen, Julia.
Julie, do you want to move on to the next slide perhaps and see if we can get Julia back when she's not frozen?
No, I think she needs to rejoin. I think she needs to rejoin. Yeah. I can hear something's happening, but I don't know what.
I think it was Carol in the background. She's not muted.
No, I can't see that we can hear Julia.
Am I back?
Oh, you're back. Oh, you're
back. Apologies. It's our internet at home. Our internet is usually really good, but for some reason this morning, it's always the case when we're doing a presentation. It went off. So we've now my husband's IT, so he's managed to restore our connection. So I should be back again. So I'm not sure at what point I lost you.
The second slide, I think, Julia.
So if we move on to the role of health services within SEND.
Yeah.
Is that all right for everybody? If anybody does feel that they missed anything, please just ask any questions and I'm more than happy to sort of go over anything again. So in relation to health services and their sort of role and responsibilities within SEND, so I just thought it'd be beneficial. I mean, I've worked in health services for sort of 25 years, so for a long time, but there is a huge amount of health and how health systems are sort of set up and how health services work that is still a mystery, and it's a really difficult sort of system to navigate even when you work in it. So I very much recognise that for parents and carers and for children and families, it can be often sort of a maze and a difficult area to sort of get lost in. So I thought it'd just be beneficial to sort of talk through health services and how they sort of contribute to SEND and to offer some explanations around that. So services within health are offered universally, but they're also offered dependent on identified or expressed needs. So health services are delivered across the graduated approach or across that continuum of need. And the continuum of need includes a prevention, and that aims to reduce the incidence of SEND wherever possible. And that's around things like public health campaigns, it's around supporting children and people early and intervening early to sort of reduce that incidence. So particularly around things like children and people's mental health campaigns, where there's that increased awareness, things like bullying, or you know, things like improving sort of speech and language and things like that, and that general awareness about the importance of sort of bonding and attachment that is out within the kind of wider communities, and the larger sort of national campaigns all sort of fall under that sort of prevention to help support and help problems kind of emerge in the first place. Universal services are offered to all children, young people's families, regardless of need, and services that particularly fall within under universal services are things like maternity and midwifery, so from sort of conception through to delivery and postnatal of that child. Health visiting services, which again support families from antenatally through to when a child starts school, and then school nursing services while that child is in an education setting. And then things like primary care in GP practices very much fall under that universal offer as well. So they're services that are very much accessible to all and available to all. And at that sort of point of contact, if you have got any needs at all, that they are available. Early intervention is when these are starting to emerge, when they are first identified, and there's a whole range of different services. My next slide is going to sort of show that range of different services that are available across all these different levels. But again, health visiting services, school nursing services, things like digital interventions offers, your GP, are all sort of services, speech and language, that can offer early intervention as and when those sort of services, when those needs start to emerge, and to get that really early intervention and support for yourselves and for your child. If those needs are not resolved, they're still continuing, or initially if those needs are sort of and concerns are quite significant, then we move on to assessment and diagnosis. And this is sort of specialist areas, specialist clinicians, there are specialist professionals who will fully assess and undertake a diagnosis and provide a diagnosis for the child. And again, there's a whole range of different services, particularly around the community paediatrician, things like audiology, things like ophthalmology, will undertake a really sort of thorough assessment, and again that is very much dependent on needs. And then if a diagnosis is made or there is an ongoing sort of need, then there is therapy, treatment and support, and there are a range of different services within health that meet needs and will support families and will support your child in relation to working and supporting that diagnosis. And the range of services around there are things like speech language therapists, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, as well as your paediatricians, and again your GPs can also support within that. So we move on to the next slide. So this is just shows the different services that I've just sort of talked through, that are available at each of those different ranges. And across Bradford and Craven District, we have three big main providers of services. We've got Bradford Teaching Hospitals, which covers Bradford Royal Infirmary and also St Luke's. We have the other acute trust over at the Craven Airedale end of the patch, which is the Airedale Hospital. And then we've also got Bradford District Care Foundation Trust, which is the main provider of community services across Bradford and District. And they provide services such as health visiting, school nursing, CAMS, and also speech language therapies, physios and OTs. So that's a sort of whistle-stop tour of health services and how they contribute to SEND. I think there is some questions that will be raised as part of the sort of pre-questions. But if you've got any more questions that you want to ask outside of the meeting, then please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm more than willing to sort of support and answer wherever I can. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We're moving on to the team. Who's speaking over this one?
Good morning, Julie. It's Charlie.
Oh, hi, Charlie. I can't see you, so but welcome. I'll leave it to you.
Don't worry about that. I think technology these days has been a big thing we're just trying to get used to, isn't it? So I think my big thing is trying to have eye contact with people and see where I'm actually looking, but it never happens, does it? So But good morning all. My name is Charlie Lowe. I'm the acting manager of Bradford's SEN assessment review team. I am the substantive deputy for the team, so I am here for the long haul. I'm here for the long run, and I'm here to support you and your community. So a little bit about our service. We're a non-advisory service, and when we say we're non-advisory, it means we cannot give direct advice. We can signpost you onto other services who will be able to give you further support, and we can signpost schools onto those areas, but we cannot direct people and say, yes, hand on heart, that is specifically what you must do. And the main role of our service is to make and maintain education, health and care plans. And when we say to make and maintain, it's that 20-week process when we're looking at initiating that and maintaining them through that annual review process. So the team in its entirety, we are made up of five sub-teams, and we've got 4,700 EHC plans roundabout. I think we're just under that at the moment, but we're edging up to that number. And on average, we have a rough increase of around 400 plans per year. Now, our teams are made up of 3 casework officers per team and a senior officer. We just have one team that's only made up of 2 casework officers and 1 senior officer. So I've got 14 casework officers in total and 5 senior officers. And the final structure will have a full-time manager and a full-time deputy as well to support those teams. So a little bit about us. We make and maintain plans, and the main part around that is that 20-week statutory process. So we're aware that when I first arrived, I arrived as a consultant, and I inherited a legacy of cases where compliancy wasn't where we needed it to be. And as Josh has mentioned, you know, we've been on a journey where we've had 2 successive increments of successful moving compliancy forwards from that 28.1% up to 52.5% at the end of 2020. This year to date, we are moving forwards with that. So each month we're making ground, we're increasing that, because our main focus is to ensure that at that 20 weeks, families have a plan. And as part of that, my main thing is to ensure that you as families, as a community, have your rights of appeal, to ensure that you've got those within your grasp. So then we can work together and look at those next steps moving forwards. A part of our statutory process is we work with our partners in health and social care, and we commission advice through them. So we work very closely with Julia and her services over with health, and we're building those links with social care through a single point of contact process. So we have a 20-week process. At week 6, we make a decision to assess, and at week 16, we make a decision to issue. And then by week 20, if we've said yes, we're going to issue, we need to ensure that we've issued a final plan. At that week 6, when we make that decision to assess, and this is good to know, it's good to know the process around what we do there. So what we do is we go to a single point of contact in our health and social care services, who then branch off to their partners, draw that information back down to them and bring that back to the local authority. So imagine it's sort of like 2 trees, of which we're at the base, we take it to the top of the trunk, it goes out to the branches, comes back down and then back into our service. And then we use that information to collate, use that information to create that EHC plan. So that's our 20-week process, and our aspiration this year is to get above national. So national from previous years was around 60.4%. So we're believing it's going to be slightly around that, if not slightly higher. So we're always aspirationally aiming towards that 90. I will always do that, because I think it's always good to have a high expectations that we're driving our service forwards in that stage, and that we're not just saying, okay, 60 will do. We're making sure that, you know, we're wanting to reach for those stars, and we want to climb that mountain and move forwards. So the next part of our process is our annual reviews. Now, I'm aware that we do have a backlog around our annual reviews, but the biggest thing that we need to do around that is make that decision, to communicate with you around whether we're going to have that decision to maintain, amend or cease that EHC plan following that review. Now, from our correspondence and liaison with the DfE, and within the letter that we've sent out to all of our EHCP parents, and Jane has also posted on the local offer a version of that, or it will be, lots of facts and questions around sort of like annual reviews, phase transfers, and what that looks like. So the main purpose of an annual review is to review the outcomes towards the plan, and we would look at updating a plan if either the outcomes had been met, a young person was at a phase transfer, so the early years, year 6 or year 11, or if any significant changes have come about in regards to needs and provision. So obviously, if there's going to be if a young person has an escalation of needs, then there is likely going to be an escalation of provision to be able to support them through that period. So they're the three elements where we would look at amending an EHC plan. That process before that is ensuring that we're actually communicating with you when we make that decision, whether we are going to just maintain the plan as it is, amend it, or move that down the lines of ceasing, of which we would only look at those lines around ceasing an EHC plan, either if a parent has requested that and there's been casework done around that to demonstrate that actually that's the right thing to do under the age of 16, or if over the age of 16 and working towards that preparation for adulthood, that they've met their outcomes and they've progressed towards employment. Now, saying that even if a plan does cease, let's just say a young person goes into employment but then says, actually, I want to partake in a college course or a supported internship, they go down a different avenue, and like I say, our process is from 0 to 25. So up to the age of 25, or actually the day before their 26th birthday, an EHC plan can still be active. So through part of that, if a young person does require an EHC plan at a later stage in life, even after it's been ceased, they can still reapply, and we can take that into consideration. So overall, that is our service, and we're here to support you as a community.
Hi, thank you ever so much, Charlie. I wonder if I could ask a question just at this point.
Of course, yeah.
Absolutely, we need to get plans done and dusted in the 20 weeks. I mean, I'm all for that. We do it really quickly. What are you actually doing in regard to ensuring that they are good quality plans? Because okay. I think that the importance that I think parent carers need is that it's the right plan. So it can be superhumanly quick, but it won't do anything if it's not the right plan. So can you just tell us how you ensure that the quality of a plan is looked at?
Of course. So the quality of EHC plans is absolutely key on our priority list around there. When I first arrived in Bradford, I was brought in as the quality assurance manager to look at the quality of EHC plans. So we've been on quite a journey. We've partnered up with an outstanding local authority and drawn up a quality assurance matrix, so we have that in place. And we've had good partnership working with them to actually jointly QA our plans, both old and existing. Now that's turned into one of our quality assurance work streams, which I'm chairing. Now, from that quality assurance work stream, we've got health representation through Julia, and social care are also as part of that. So what we're doing is looking at the quality assurance of plans as a whole. Now, we understand that we've got some work to do in regards to annual reviews and the quality of plans around that aspect, and we understand that our current plans that are being produced are of a higher quality than before. We're seeing increases in sort of like the clarity in section B, where we're having that real good differentiation between that strengths and needs profile, and also section A, that's coming together a little more, it's a bit more cohesively. Now, you'll now want to know, so well, what are you doing about supporting the community? How are you supporting schools? What next? We've delivered several training sessions, and over the past 18 months, as I've been actively involved in the authority, we've been looking at working alongside schools with around that graduated approach, because good quality EHC plans come from good quality advice. And actually, the core of it is good quality, well, not just good quality, very high quality co-production, which starts at that earlier stages. So we've delivered training to our SEN codes around that graduated approach, and we provide them with a facility to be able to record that through the My Support plan. We've also given them good examples over what good co-production looks like. And my particular drive recently at the latest SENCO network meeting has been around Section A and actually young person's views, because it's absolutely clear that we record those views in the most accurate ways possible. For me, that golden thread of Section A is absolutely paramount, because if we don't get that young person's view right, and if we don't get those aspirations linked in there, then it can't drive that golden thread through the rest of the plan. So we are very actively involved with our schools at the moment, trying to drive that improvement around what the quality of advice looks like, and also from annual reviews, what the quality of updates looks like as well. So I'm very open to going to any schools, any SENCO hubs, to be able to support them through that. And in fact, actually, prior to Christmas, I've delivered training to a handful of the special schools, and we've got more of them coming forwards and booking in. And yesterday I met with one of our SENCO hubs for our academy chains, and I've delivered training to them as well. So wherever I can possibly get in to support schools, I am working my way through everyone as best as I possibly can. So the offer of support and training is there on that basis, but also it's that wider notion of actually that SENCO network is delivering that support as well.
Okay, thank you ever so much, Charlie. I think moving, not to deal with it now, I think what we'd want really is, if a parent is unhappy with the quality of the plan, what would your advice be to respond to that? So keep that on hold, and it'll be a question that I guess we can pick up with the other questions later on. So I think, Lynn, are you ready to go?
I am, Julie, thank you. Good morning. So my name is Lynn Donohue. I'm the strategic manager for what's called our specialist teaching and support services, and again part of children's services for Bradford Council. I'm just going to go through the next few slides to explain what that actually comprises. So these are a range of specialist SEN services for teaching and support services to schools. So there's also to colleges and early years settings. That might be a private or voluntary or independent early years setting. These are, if you like, setting and school facing services. So we work directly with the schools, with the colleges, with those early years settings. So we're not a service that, you know, where we accept referrals from parents. This is directed through the schools. We have a range of different services and teams that do that. Louise, next slide. So, for example, one of the teams is the skill team. So these are a range of teachers and practitioners, and also early years specialists. This is the social communication, interaction and learning team. So they offer teaching, support, advice, training, forums, networks and intervention strategies and support, curriculum support materials to early years settings, schools and colleges in 4 main areas. So speech, language and communication, or communication and interaction, including autism, early years, social, emotional and mental health, and learning support, otherwise known as cognition and learning. So these are, as I say, settings focused, or schools and college focused, where on a regular basis groups of schools or individual schools would have that conversation with a link officer to describe what their priorities are, what their needs are, the priorities of the children in that school. And then we support the school or setting to actually provide the best advice, learning strategies for those children. Thank you, Louise. The second major component of specialist teaching and support services are called the low incidence, or better known really as the sensory service. So these are a team made up of a whole range of different teachers and practitioners. So this might be specialist teachers of the deaf, specialist teachers for the visually impaired, deaf instructors, for example, audiologists, technical officers, habilitation officers who help children in terms of their accessibility. And they provide teaching and support and outreach work to children and young people who may have a visual impairment, a hearing impairment, a multisensory impairment, or again in terms of physical needs, physical difficulties. And they comprise of, if you like, peripatetic outreach teams who work directly with children in schools and settings. And next slide, Louise. Oh, sorry, I'll take you back. Sorry, Louise, I was preempting that next slide. Thank you, sorry. And another slide that I'll go to in a moment, we also provide provisions within schools to help children and support children and staff with those sensory impairments. Another key component of the service, sorry Louise, it is the next slide now, are our specialist resource provisions. And I do note that the service manager who leads on these provisions will be doing some slides and talking to you a little bit in a moment as well. So these are relatively new provisions. So these are led by the local authority. And these are provisions that are, if you like, hosted or co-located within a mainstream school. We've got a range of these provisions. So we've got provisions for children with social, emotional and mental health needs with an EHCP, and communication and interaction, including autism needs. All these children will have an EHCP. We also have the same range of specialist provisions located within a mainstream school for children with sensory needs as well. So at the moment, we've got a number of these that are operational, and some of these are very, very new indeed. Some of them started about 12 months ago, but some of them only in September. So for example, we've got a secondary provision at Appleton Academy, a primary provision at Princeville, one also at Fagley, and we have one at Miriam Lord, Hollingwood Primary and Thornton. Thornton's one of our newest ones that opened in September. So these are, say, located within a mainstream school. The children have an EHCP. The children are on the roll of that school, but in terms of the local authority, we employ the staff, we deploy the staff as well to the different provisions based on their skills and knowledge and experience. And I don't want to preempt what Jeanette's going to say, but the basis of those resource provisions is to provide quality education within the provision itself, but also within the mainstream school that hosts it. Louise, next slide. We also have resource provisions that are located within mainstream schools as well for children with sensory needs. And these are very, very long established. Some of these, you know, that have been established for up to 10 years. So, for example, in Hanson Secondary School, we have purpose-built provision within the school for secondary age pupils with visual impairments and hearing impairments. We have specialist teachers and practitioners within the school that teach the children not only within the provision itself, but also in mainstream. We also have a hearing impaired provision within Girlington Primary, one at Swain House, and also a visual impaired provision within Grove House Primary Academy. Next slide, Louise.
Hi, Lynn. I don't want to. So I'm just trying to move things on because we've got.
This is the last slide, Julie.
We've had an hour.
And very quickly, the latest and newest arm of the service is called the Medical Needs and Hospital Education Service. Some of you may formerly have known it as TRACS. And this is a service for children who are too ill or too unwell to attend school, or may be in hospital, for example, at BRI or Airedale. We also have schoolrooms and specialised provision at Owlett Road in Shipley. That's it from me, Julie.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. I think we've got, I think Debbie coming on next. I'm just thinking if we do a few minutes with SENDIASS, and then I think people are actually, well, I am, desperate need to have a bit of a break. And then we can come back fresh and think about answering some questions. Is that okay? So I think we've got Debbie next. And then
we did actually have Jeanette, but obviously, Julie, you know, your chair.
If it's quick, I don't mind. I'm just trying to. I want to get as much time for parents to get questions in. So if we're quick, I know it's very useful information. If Jeanette wants to have a few words, please, Jeanette. Sorry about that. And then on to Debbie as quickly as we can. Then we can have a bit of a break and start afresh.
Hi there. Yeah, Jeanette Butterworth here. I think Lynn really said it all, really. Just a very exciting time for us with the local authority resource provisions opening. Like Lynn said, for those children who need specialist support in mainstream, but not quite that full provision needed in special school. So very excited, like I said, that we're opening these new provisions around autism and SEMH in both secondary and primary. All the children have an EHCP and they're on a continuum of need. So some of our children will need a very bespoke package, mainly around resource provision with very small setting specialist staff, and some will no doubt be in mainstream provision as they are in our school-led provisions. For most of their time, that's our ambition for our young people, to have these skills to access a full-time mainstream education wherever possible, and that exits that whole school life opportunity. So the advantage of our local authority resource provisions is, of course, that we can move our staff around the provisions where the need is most greatest. So we can channel expertise to match the needs of the child. So yeah, it's a very exciting time for us. I know that you need to get on, and I'll certainly answer any questions later that anybody has.
Thank you, Jeanette. So we've just got left Debbie, who's going to quickly run through a little bit about SENDIASS. Then if we take a break, what you've heard this morning might have actually posed questions that you want to ask when we get back, or it might have answered some. We hope it will have answered some. So over to you, Debbie.
Hi, I'm just going to quickly rattle through some of these slides. I misunderstood the brief, so I've put some stuff in there about sort of you said we did from last time as well, but I'm happy to kind of skip over that bit, Julie, if you like, because I think the rest of the presentations have been largely about what the service is. So about Bradford SENDIASS, there are 6 of us at the moment on the SENDIASS team. That's myself and 5 caseworkers. They are all part-time, so in reality it's around about 3 caseworkers, just under. And we also have a student volunteer who's doing some bits of stuff from home for us to support the team. The team have all had extensive training from both the Council for Disabled Children and from IPSE, which is, as you probably know, the Independent Parental Special Education and Advice. And they've got experience in various different areas, so teaching, learning support, previous local authority staff from different areas, social care, advice sector. We've got a whole range of kind of backgrounds. And we're committed to securing the best outcomes for children and young people through the work that we do with them and their parents. Skip on, Louise. Next slide, that's it. So what we do is we offer impartial information, advice and support to families of children and young people with special educational needs or disabilities, and it's within the Bradford area. So we don't take sides. Our role is about supporting parents to liaise with the school and the local authority to look at resolutions to issues that they might be having, and to try and move things along where they might have got a little bit stuck. We're kind of a middleman, if you like. We are mainly there as the support for parents, carers and young people, but we do also advise professionals as well. We have a number of professionals contact us, and we will advise in meetings about kind of processes and procedures to follow. If the school or the SENCO, for example, is unsure or misinformed, you know, we will advise on that. These are the sort of topics that we cover. So we can support with EHCPs, whether that's the application process, a review or the implementation of it. We support with admissions, exclusion, SEN support and provision in school, transport, so all sorts of different topics in relation to SEND. Next slide, please.
Right, have I gone on
So
one
I'm not
too
going to
many?
No, it's fine. So these were just literally, I'm not going to read through it all, but it was looking at the issues that were raised in previous listening events about our waiting list times. So just to update, we've gone from approximately a 10 to 12 week waiting list this time last year to at the end of the last quarter, the average time on the waiting list was 10 days, and that included the Christmas period. So generally speaking, it's around about a week. In terms of being understaffed, at points in time we have carried vacancies. We have currently got a full staff team, and we continue to try and train and volunteers to support us. We're a little bit restricted by that at the moment in terms of COVID, but we're looking at a sustainability plan going forward to look at how much we can continue to deliver in different ways. Next slide.
Do you want the next one?
Yes, sorry.
Same.
So very quickly, one thing that comes up quite often, I mean, the difficulties about receiving a response. Again, we've created a duty rota so that we can keep our response times really down. The other thing that comes up quite often is advocacy. So just to say that staff have received training in advocacy and IAS services. We're not legal advocates, but we do follow the definition of advocacy, which is in the national minimum standards. So we do support parents in that way, and where parents are requiring, where they have a right to a legal advocate, we can signpost people onto specific services. Next slide. So just a quick update, SENDIASS are continuing to attend meetings virtually for the time being due to the national lockdown. So that's through use of digital platforms such as this one rather than face-to-face, and we have successfully attended school meetings, local authority, mediation and tribunal in this way. So it doesn't mean that we won't be able to support you just because we can't do it face-to-face. it's just about ensuring the safety of our staff and also of parents and families. So requests for face-to-face will be considered, but it's very much, we can't guarantee it. It'll be at discretion of caseworker and team management and very much dependent on the individual circumstances. But we will work with parents to make sure we can find an alternative solution if face-to-face isn't possible. Next slide.
That's lovely. Can I stop you there, Debbie? You know, the local offer will be able to point you in the right direction. I'm going to stop it now. Sorry, Debbie, in full flow.
It's fine, anyway.
But please, you know, the SENDIASS, parents need to be aware of SENDIASS, and we still have a problem with that. Now, we're going to have a break. So if we say sort of 1:15-ish, and then I'll just tell you how we're going to run the last bit of this meeting. Okay. See you soon, people.